If you're joining us, thank you. If you're joining us online, feel free to go ahead and mute yourself. We will have time for Q&A at the end. Like I said, this is being recorded, but the recording focuses primarily on the speaker and will feature our slides. So as long as you are muted and not actively speaking, even if your camera is on, it's not recording what you look like. So I will hand it over to Ms. Allison Holland, our National Chair of Literacy Promotion, to get our night started.
First thing I want to say is welcome. We're so glad you're all here. So far, it looks like we have about 75 people online with us, which is wonderful and remarkable, particularly for this session, because we're doing a cover of great books. And our expert today is actually Arissa Dameron, who has been in charge of getting these programs together for us throughout the last 3 years, or we're in our third year. And we want to welcome you. And if you've been here before, thank you for coming. And we hope you'll tell your friends about it. And we hope you continue to follow through with us until the end of this term. Arissa, it's all yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Maybe. Oh, nope, hit the wrong button in the wrong order. Here we go. Let's try it again. All right. Thank you all so much for joining us. Tonight's presentation is especially timely. We are talking today about book awards. So throughout our conversations over the past 3 years, these awards have come up several times. People always come to us and say, how do I know it's a good book? How do I make sure I'm donating books to schools and libraries and putting them in the hands of readers and that they are quality books? How do I stay up to date with the thousands of books that are published every year? And so often I have pushed people towards the American Library Association's Youth Media Awards. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about those awards, which were announced this past Monday. My role in them is a member of the 2025 Caldecott Committee, and how these awards and the hard work of librarians and literacy professionals all over the country can be reutilized by you as DAR members to promote committee work, to lead your school donations, read alouds you might do with your chapter, etc. So I will make questions at the end, and this presentation will also be available online afterwards. So every year, we'll go back for a second, pretend you didn't see that. So every year, the Association for Library Services to Children, ALSC, which is a subdivision of ALA, hosts the Youth Media Awards at the end of January. This is probably the most anticipated day in children's literature every year. It takes place at the annual conference, and it is the announcement of awards like the Caldecott, the Newbery, the Coretta Scott King Award. These awards are given every year in January to the best books in these award categories published the previous year. So these are all the 2025 awards, which means they are all for books published in 2024. The committee reads for the whole year, all books published for most of these awards, calendar year, January 1st through January 31st. And they all have different criteria, which I'll showcase here for you. Some of them are a little more general than others. Some are incredibly specific. And there are great ways that we can use these to benefit the work we're doing in DAR. So we will start with my favorite award, the Caldecott Medal. This is the awarded annually, so each year, to the artist, the illustrator, not the author, of the most distinguished American picture book for children. I served on this committee this year, so if you don't like any of these titles, guess what? You're wrong. Haha. This was an amazing opportunity for me, and my committee chose 4 honor books or runners-up. These are all silver medals. ALA doesn't really do bronze medals, it's silver and gold. Our silver medal honor books were Home in a Lunchbox, Up, Up, Ever Up, Noodles on a Bicycle, and My Daddy is a Cowboy. And then our gold medal winner is Chooch Helped by Andrea L. Rogers, illustrated by Rebecca Lee Coons. The Caldecott Medal is a great list. It's been around since 1938, and so there are hundreds of books that have won Caldecott medals and Caldecott honors for those young readers in your life who are looking for really high-quality picture books. What a picture book means has changed throughout the years. So a lot of the original Caldecott honor and medal books were more of the fairy tale, Noah's Ark, fairy tale retelling sort of books. Historically, though, now we see much more quality picture books. This might also include graphic novels, though it is primarily traditional picture books that you expect, 32 pages, hardcover, etc. This year's selection of books offers a really great chance if you work with the American Indians Committee. Chooch Helped features a Cherokee sibling duo, Sissy and Chooch, who are really experiencing a very universal sibling problem because Chooch is 2 years old and he wants to help. As you can see from the cover, a 2-year-old helping usually goes about like that. Whoop. So if you're working on your American Indians Minute, if you're looking for a presentation about American Indians, Chooch Helped is a great way to utilize that. Home in a Lunchbox is a picture book all about a girl immigrating from Hong Kong to America and really finding comfort in the smells and the taste of the food she's always known. Up, Up, Ever Up is a picture book biography of mountain climber Junko Tabei. Noodles on a Bicycle is a historical picture book about 1920s Tokyo delivery men. And My Daddy is a Cowboy is a modern exploration of Black cowboys. So all of these offer a really diverse way to engage with modern children. All of them are gorgeously illustrated, obviously, and offer different slices of the way to engage with readers. I love to use the Caldecott Medal in my classroom with, how do we think really deeply about what the pictures are showing us, even more so than just the words. Oh, 1 second. Where do we go? Oh, I clicked on it. That's what I said. Okay, let me start my screen again. 1 second. So even more famous, possibly, than the Caldecott Medal is the Newbery Medal. The Newbery Medal is the longest given award from the Association of Library Services for Children. It's over 100 years old. It is awarded annually to the author of the most distinguished contribution to American literature for children. So the way people often think about it is the Caldecott is for pictures, the Newbery is for words. Obviously, sometimes a Newbery Medal is a graphic novel. Okay, it's happened once, but it was a great book. But in theory, it's for the book as a whole. It's usually chapter books, middle grade novels, those books for like 4th through 8th graders. In theory, both of these awards can be given for any book meant for 0 to 14-year-olds, but the Newbery Medal skews towards that older range. This year, they named 4 honor books. You'll notice a lot of committees named 4 honor books this year, despite working in a vacuum. 4 was a big number this year. Across So Many Seas is a multi-generational historical fiction novel about different women in a Jewish family. One Big Open Sky is about a Black family moving west. It's a novel in verse, so in poetry. Very well done. Magnolia Wu Unfolds It All is a sort of younger chapter book about a girl whose family owns a laundromat and she wants to get all the socks repaired up, which leads to her some mysteries. And The Wrong Way Home is one of the most talked about books this year. It's about a little girl and her mom who leave a cult. And, the mom is like, we're escaping. This is bad for us. But the little girl wants to go back. That's the only home she's ever known. And so she feels really drawn to that. And then the winner of this year's Newbery Medal, which you'll notice was also a National Book Award finalist, is The First State of Being by Erin Entrada Kelly. It's this sort of futuristic book that deals with a guy kind of going through it, a teenager, and he meets a new friend who is from the future and has this book of all the things that are going to happen. Erin Entrada Kelly has actually won the Newbery Medal before, so she's now one of 4 or 5 authors who has won 2 gold Newbery Medals in her life. Her previous book, Hello Universe, won in 2018 as well. The Newbery books are amazing book club selections if you're reading with a CAR group or donating to schools. This year, they feature a lot of female protagonists, a lot of different times and places, so a great way to share history. One Big Open Sky is a great book to donate if you might otherwise have donated, like a Little House on the Prairie or something like that. Next up, we have the Coretta Scott King Award. This is awarded annually to African-American authors and illustrators of books for children and young adults that demonstrate an appreciation of African-American culture and universal human values. So these are not only authors and illustrators who are Black, but also are telling Black stories, historically Black joy. They had 3 honor books for the illustrator for the picture this year. Coretta, a book about Coretta Scott King, likely winner, I think. Everywhere Beauty is, that's a picture book biography of Coretta Scott King. Everywhere Beauty is Harlem is a really photography-driven book that's very beautifully done, all about kind of Black joy growing up on the streets of Harlem. And Go Forth and Tell is a picture book biography of Augusta Baker, one of the premier Black storytellers and librarians. The winner of the Coretta Scott King Illustrator Award was also a Caldecott Honor book. It's My Daddy is a Cowboy, illustrated by C.G. Esperanza, which again is about those Black cowboys and Panama American culture. These books are great, especially if you're donating to an urban school, a school with a primarily Black audience. They deserve to get these high quality books that have characters who look like them and are created by people who look like them. So that is the Coretta Scott King Illustrator Award. So for the pictures, they also give out an author award. So primarily for the words. One Big Open Sky by Lisa Klein Ransom, which was also a Newbery honor, won an author honor. It's again a very similar to Little House on the Prairie, a family going west, all those experiences, wagon culture, things like that. Black Star by Kwame Alexander. This is a historical fiction book set in the 1950s, also a novel in verse, so poetry, about a little girl who really wants to play baseball, but of course is growing up in the 1950s South and really experiencing all that racism and misogyny that comes with that. That's great if you have kids who are really wanting sports books, but also want to learn a little bit about history. And Black Girl, You Are Atlas, which is a really moving fictional account of this author's life. And then the winner of the Coretta Scott King Author Award this year is a YA novel, so definitely for like high school teens, called 24 Seconds From Now. It's by a very famous Black author, Jason Reynolds, who has won a number of awards. He's highly acclaimed. No one was surprised to see his name up here. But this is great if you have, especially teen boys who are interested in kind of like romance, dating, learning about these sorts of things and the conversations we have around them. It is a fiction book as well. 1 second, I'm gonna check the thing. All right. Next up, we have the Schneider Family Book Award. This award honors an author or illustrator for a book that embodies an artistic expression of the disability experience for child and adolescent audiences. So this is a book award that has disability representation on the stage. If you work with a school special needs department, if you're looking for books that represent autism, physical disabilities, wheelchair use, things like that, these are great awards to look for. The two honor books this year were You're So Amazing and Monster Hands. You're So Amazing deals with different body disabilities, and Monster Hands primarily focuses on autism. A Little Like Magic is a gorgeous book. I loved it. It's about a little girl in a wheelchair, as you can see on the cover, who really doesn't want to go out to this ice show. She hates going to new places. She doesn't like being out in the cold, but she really sees the beauty of this ice show. It is one of the most gorgeously illustrated depictions of ice, which I imagine as a non-artist is very hard to draw. And it's a really beautiful experience of what it's like for her to be in a wheelchair, not about like, how did she get there? Why is it hard? But what it's like to now go to a new place, what it's like to have to navigate through a crowd, to get in the car and get dressed, things like that. So this were the picture books for younger winners. They also give a Schneider Award for older books. The middle grade books were Shark Teeth and Louder Than Hunger. Louder Than Hunger deals primarily with eating disorders. So if you are working with people who are doing residential treatment or anything like that. And then the winner was Popcorn by Rob Harrell. I actually have not read this one, but I have heard only great things about its representation. And then we have the Pura Belpre Award. So if you work in primarily Spanish-speaking communities or with a large Latina population, I recommend looking at the awards that have won the Pura Belpre Medal. It is presented annually to a Latino or Latina writer and illustrator whose work best portrays and celebrates the Latino cultural experience in an outstanding work of literature for children and youth. These are not necessarily going to be books that are written in Spanish, but they are infused with probably Spanish language throughout, cultural references, mentions, and represent the Latina experience. The two honor books this year are a historical fiction book, Cruzita and the Mariacheros, excuse my pronunciation, by Ashley Granillo, and Ultraviolet. Ultraviolet by Ada Salazar is a great book if you're looking for books to donate to maybe middle school boys in a more urban environment that are looking for stories about boys who are trying to be good people and like stick to what they know is right, while really influenced by the structures of middle school, the confines of friendship, gossip, things like that. And then the winner of the Pure Belpré medal for the author, again, the words this year, was Lola by Carla Arenas Valenti. These are all chapter books, so they'd be great for middle grade and up. The Robert F. Seibert Medal is a nonfiction book award, or primarily nonfiction award, given every year to this author and illustrator of the most distinguished informational book published in the United States in English. So primarily this is given to nonfiction book awards or nonfiction books, but notice it specifically says informational book. So picture books have won and been honored by the Seibert Medal before. If you ever read the American Indian picture book, Fry Bread, which is about like what is fry bread, but not nonfiction, it is a Seibert Medal winner. I actually recently did a unit study on the Seibert Medal with my elementary school kids, and what we really noticed was this is one of the only awards given out by ALA that specifically looks at would a child be interested in this book. Other awards are just for excellence. This specifically takes into account children's interests. They named 4 honor books. The Enigma Girls by Candace Fleming is an upper middle grade YA book, so great for teens and tweens, about World War II and the code breakers. Call Me Roberto is a really motion-packed picture book biography about Roberto Clemente. The Girl Who Sang is a middle grade and upper elementary school graphic novel about a girl surviving the Holocaust. She doesn't go to a camp, she runs away, but it's very much how World War II and the Nazis impacted her experience and her relationship to her voice. It does, I will say she does survive. It does have a happy ending, and it's part of the story of the person writing the story as well. And then Wings of an Eagle, which is a book I really loved this year. It's great if you're working with the American Indians Committee. It's a picture book biography of an acclaimed Olympian who is Native American. It's really infused with Native American iconography throughout. If you look at that cover, that would be a great book to highlight along with Chooch Helped in your American Indians Minute. And then our winner is Life After Whale, The Amazing Ecosystem of a Whale Fall by Lynn Brunel and illustrated by Jason Chen. This is a book about a whale fall, which is literally the process of when a whale dies in the ocean and falls to the bottom. A little dark, a little beautifully done in this book, honestly. It's very scientifically told, but clearly explained in a child's voice. So it's not meant to be scary. It's not meant to be concerning. It's meant to show this ecosystem really and how the death of this whale is really just the beginning for so much. This is a great book to highlight for the Conservation Committee, especially as we think about, what's kind of happening in the ocean. How is the ocean kind of its own ecosystem and taking care of itself? Oh, the Enigma Girls would also be awesome if you're highlighting women's issues or commemorative events related to World War II. The Theodore Seuss Geisel Award is named after Dr. Seuss, obviously. Great picture of him on the medal. It's given annually to the authors and illustrators, both of them, of the most distinguished American book for beginning readers. This is a little bit different than a picture book because the Geisel Committee actually has like word and page limits. Like to be a book for a beginning reader is a very specific scientific thing. It has less than 100 words. It uses certain kinds of words. It has certain sentence length, things like that. These are what we would call in a library easy readers or books that are for those like emerging readers, kindergarten and first graders. These are great. This is a great award if you want to give books to kids that are really going to make them laugh. It's not a requirement of the award to be funny, but I often find that that is how they manifest. The 2 honor books they named were Toad by Toad, which is literally about a toad who drives a tow truck. Kids love it. It's more of a picture book, longer horizontally. And Fox versus Fox, which is a My First I Can Read book by Corey R. Tabor. Corey Tabor is a very prolific author in children's literature. He does his own illustrations. He has a Caldecott honor, a couple Geisel wins. They're really funny books about animals doing weird stuff. And then our winner of the Geisel Award this year is Vacation, which is a 3-part sort of mini story from the Bat, Cat, and Rat series, where a bat, a cat, and a rat who all live together in a kind of odd couple situation, odd friendships, go on vacation. And of course, the way a cat, a bat, and a rat vacation is all very differently. That's great for sight words. If you're coming to read to a class for a community classroom or another group, I would recommend picking a Geisel winner. Right. Make sure I didn't skip anything. Yes, here we go. Sorry. Ah. The Asian Pacific American Award, APALA Awards, are given out every year to recognize individual work about Asian and Pacific Americans and their heritage based on literary and artistic merit. They do mean Asian and Pacific Americans broadly, so they are both incorporating Chinese, Japanese, Malaysian, Indian, Hawaiian, in things like that. So these are really great broad awards. The honor book for their picture book award this year went to The Rock in My Throat, which is all about kind of the discomfort of the immigrant experience and not knowing what to say. And a really gorgeous picture book one called Aloha Everything. It's this gorgeously illustrated full color book all about hula and the different indigenous Hawaiian experiences. It's very poetic, almost looks like a mural. The Children's Literature Award, so for upper grades, went to 2 graphic novels, which is really fun because that's exactly what kids want to read these days. Mabuhay is a graphic novel by Zachary Sterling about siblings growing up working on a food truck with their family. And Continental Drifter, the winner, is about a girl who moves with her family and kind of experience that, like, where do I belong? Am I more Asian? Am I more American? Both of these are great for donations to classrooms, especially if you work in a community that has a large Asian population. The Sydney Taylor Book Award is presented annually to outstanding books for children and teens that authentically portray the Jewish experience. As you can see, there are some much more general book awards that are going to have these diverse experiences, but then different groups also honor these books specifically that maybe aren't going to rise to the top of the Caldecott. Maybe they're not going to win the Newbery. Maybe they're also not eligible, but they're still great if you're looking for books specifically that are going to have your community seeing themselves in the page. They named 4 honor books, as I said, a very common number this year. Amazing Abe, which is a picture book biography about a Jewish immigrant in his newspaper. Rising, which is about making challah. Joyful Song, which is about the process of naming a Jewish baby. And Tree of Life, which is about a Holocaust sapling kind of being taken and grown. And then the winner, which I haven't read yet, but I've heard is great, is an Estrog from Across the Sea, which is about kind of an immigrant experience as well. So these are all picture books, so great for those younger grades, probably up to 3rd grade best. And then they do give middle grade awards as well. So for chapter books for, say, 3rd and up. Their honor books include Across So Many Seas, which is that Newbery honor book that's about multiple generations throughout time of a Jewish family. Finn and Ezra's Bar Mitzvah Time Loop, which is great if you've got people who are interested in sort of like funnier, kind of knock out loud school stories, and Just Shy of Ordinary, which is also great. The winner of the middle grade award was The Girl Who Sang, which is that graphic novel about a girl in the Holocaust. The Batchelder Award is a really interesting award if you're looking for off the beaten track books. It's given out to the most outstanding children's book originated in a language other than English in a country other than the United States. So many of the ALA awards specifically require the author or illustrator to be either a resident or citizen of the United States. The Batchelder is basically the opposite. They're looking for books that aren't written by American citizens or even residents, that are written in other languages, but that are now being translated really excellently. They named 4 honor books this year: Home, Johnny, the Sea and Me, Mr. LePron's Mystery Soup, and A Sleepless Night. The winner is John the Skeleton, which is a very funny story about a skeleton doing skeleton things. All of these books have a little bit of a European sensibility to them, like the jokes might feel a little different, but it's great if you've got advanced younger readers who are looking for something that feels weirder to them. Like it's going to require them to think a little bit differently. Oops, sorry, 1 second. All right. And I think, is that my last slide? Let's confirm. Yes, so I'm going to stop sharing and talk a little bit more about how these awards are decided and how they can be used. So the American Library Association is primarily made up of librarians, but it's not just school librarians, it's not just children's librarians, and not just public librarians. Each of these committees seeks to have a robust diversity, not only of library type, of location, experiences. I served on the Caldecott committee with school librarians, with public librarians, with curators of children's literature collections, with retired public librarians, from all over the country. Every other committee is similarly made up, but they fluctuate in size. So the Caldecott committee has 15 people. Other committees might have 6 or 7, depending. All of these committees are really working within different criteria. So there's a reason that you might see a book on that slideshow appear more than once. All of these committees work in a vacuum. We are not allowed to talk to anyone else about what we're considering. I have people that work for the NSA that can talk about more than I can talk about with the Caldecott, right? How many votes we do, what we did or didn't like about it, who voted for what. All of those are like never can be disclosed NDA secrets. What we can say though, right, is we read everything that's eligible. And so knowing the criteria helps kind of guess about what might be chosen, right? If I'm reading everything that's eligible and your book doesn't have pictures, it's probably not being considered for the Caldecott, right? But just because it's a picture book doesn't mean it doesn't have great words. Very famously in 2015, The Last Stop on Market Street, which is a picture book, won the Newbery Medal and a Caldecott honor, right? It's a picture book, and it was noted as more excellent than many other, full novels for children. So really every year is a chance to discover something new with these committees. They're reading widely. I read over 1,000 picture books this year, and I stopped counting graphic novels, but thankfully it wasn't 1,000. So you can trust that these committees are taking their time and they're really choosing something that's great, that has merit, that should be shared. Obviously, there are only so many awards, but every book can't get something. But these are a great place to start when you start thinking about how can I donate, read aloud, put in the hands of my readers really great, excellent books that have already been vetted by people and maybe specifically meet a niche interest or cultural group that I want to honor. So I know in DAR, right, we're always looking for committee minutes. We're always looking for activities. We're always looking for things to donate. And I would recommend you start looking at these books and thinking about how books like this, books like these lists and the Youth Media Awards can be utilized to make your life easier in DAR, right? Let the people who logged who knows how many Service to America hours reading for these awards kind of take some of the ease off of you when you're saying, oh, I read a really great story time book for next week. Great, I'll choose a Geisel winner. Oh, I want to really support this class who wants to read more historical fiction book. I can pick some Newbery winners, things like that. I will open it up to questions now if people have questions about these award committees, how to use them. Obviously, these are just the ones given out by the American Library Association, but lots of different groups give awards every year. If you're looking for STEM books, there's the Cook Prize or the Mathical Prize, which specifically look at math and science books. Every 2 years, they give out an American Youth Indian Award. So even though Chooch won the Caldecott this year, I suspect it will also win a Youth Indian Award next year when it's announced. That's a committee that only announces every 2 years, some announce every year, etc. Yes, Rebecca, I'm going to put a link in the chat of all the Youth Media Award winners this year. Allison, did you have any questions?
Yes, the first thing I want to know is how are the committee members for the Caldecott picked? And when you get together, how long do you have to make the decision?
Yeah, so all of the awards you saw today are primarily run through the American Library Association, specifically the Association for Library Services to Children. So to be a member of the committee, you have to volunteer. We call it a volunteer form. Historically, some of the committees were appointed, about half appointed by the president and president-elect, and the other half you could run for them, right? Like you could ballot for it, like you would run for office. They have gone away with that, and almost all of them are appointed now. When you fill out a volunteer form for these organizations, you're saying, hey, this is why you should pick me. I'm willing to do it. Here's what I've done in the past, whether you've served on other committees, whether you're reviewed for journals, whether you've reviewed for whether you've run a really successful book club at your library, right? They're not looking for experts necessarily. Not everyone needs to have been doing it for 30 years, but they want to know that you're going to be able to handle the workload, and it is a huge workload, and that you have insights that will make it more interesting, right? So they don't want a committee full of school librarians who are going to be like, oh, well, you can't read this aloud, so it can't be good, right? They're looking for a diverse experience. I was appointed to the 2025 Caldecott Committee, which announced our winner on Monday, on November 18th of 2023. So we read for the entirety of 2024. We had casual meetings throughout to make sure we were on track, checking in with each other. We made our nominations. We talked about books with each other. And then we had 3 8-hour meetings virtually in January where we talked about all of the books we had nominated. And then we narrowed that list down to the number of books we wanted to take to Arizona with us, which is where our meeting was. And then we had about 2 days of meetings in Arizona where we had to ultimately ballot for our winner and our honor books. So it's actually not as much like time talking, because each of the committee members for the Caldecott and the Newbery get 7 nominations. So I read 1,000 books. I could only pick 7 to say, these are the ones I think should win. And when I'm bringing a nomination forward, I need to think it can win, right? You're not supposed to bring forward a book that you're like, oh, but this should be a runner-up. All of the honor books, in theory, are books that could have won on a different day, right? On a different ballot. If you vote again, it could change, right? They're all excellent and stand up.
Okay.
I see
Great.
Rob had a question in the chat of where should we be looking for book awards? The awards themselves, not the books. I'm wondering about how many book awards I don't know about. Probably 1 million. There are book awards for all the I can see. There are the big ones through ALA. ALA also has adult book awards. So I previously chaired the Carnegie Medals, which is for excellence in fiction and nonfiction. There are RUSA awards. So there's a best cookbook award. There's a best probably dictionary award. There are also a lot of hyper local awards, which can be a great way to get started. They are often looking, if you're a library professional or someone book adjacent, for volunteers. If you look up your state, so say Maryland Book Award, Maryland does the Black Eyed Susan Award every year, right? They are giving out best of lists. There's a children's notable list for most states. The Young Adult Library Services Association does quick picks, which are like good books for reluctant readers, books that are really quick or short. I would recommend starting at your state level and saying like, okay, what are the awards given out for best books in California? And they might be like California's version of the Caldecott, where they are just a smaller group making the same decisions. Or it might look at specifically books that are about California or by California authors or illustrators. They really have a lot of flexibility there. To Rita's question, yes, this is being recorded and it'll be on our members only website along with all the others. Are there any other questions or ideas about how you might use these awards with your DAR work? You can come off mute or put it in the chat.
Are there any that are specifically geared towards 250 that we should be keeping an eye out for? Not
yet, but I think that's a great idea. And I would love to see that either from the national or state level commissions, maybe like a Notable America 250 award. I think that's a great idea. There is nothing stopping you in your chapter from making a book award, right? You decide. Everyone sets its own criteria. Everyone sets its own prizes. There are a couple books coming out I will flag. Lori Halls Anderson, who's a very famous author for Speak and Chains and Ashes, has a book coming out this April called Rebellion 1776. It's about a girl and smallpox during the American Revolution, so hope that goes better than I hope. But yeah, that's a great idea for how can we look at that? I know Kentucky DAR does like a book list every year for their state chapters about like what they want them to read. Think of that as a book award, right? How can you be highlighting books and, you know, choosing book club books and things like that that relate to this as well?
Marissa,
yes,
you gave really great America 250 recommendations for.
Oh yeah.
And so we're excited about that. Emily Nelson's excited. But I was just even thinking, because I got to watch the awards, like now I want to do like a book club where I'm just reading the children's books because they're so interesting. It really is. Like, it's just sometimes like with our adult book clubs, we all just don't have the time to read it. But these are such beautiful books that I think it would make a really fun book club.
Yeah, I agree.
To do.
I always say, like, as someone who has historically run my chapter book club and who does book clubs for a living, as they say, do not be afraid of like middle grade and YA novels. One, they're I will be honest, in large part, often better written than adult books. And they're more engaging. They're meant for people who have a much shorter attention span and way less time on their hands. To get a kid to want to read a book, you have to be doing a certain something, especially with a Newbery or a Caldecott winner. You have to grip readers from the beginning. So definitely look for those books that have won, especially if they're historical fiction. You could easily put them into your book club and people won't even necessarily realize they're not for adults. Like one Big Open Sky by Lisa Klein Ransom, I think is actually a little high, high on that range for Newbery. I was surprised it won. But because one of the characters is a mother. One of the characters is an adult. It's easily a book that you could put in the hands of your book club and they would have no question about like, this is for little kids, right? My book club this past year, or my Regents project, is focusing on storytelling. And so we read The Last Quintista, which was the 2021 Newbery winner, and is all about the importance of storytelling in a futuristic space society, right? It's a middle grade novel, but it's still a super engaging read. I saw Elizabeth put in the chat, Goodreads does have award winners every year. I will say Goodreads is quite literally a popularity contest. So yes, those are great books, but they're not vetted necessarily by librarians or book professionals. There's primarily, who really likes that popular book, right? Obviously, they're usually pretty good, if that's why people like them, but it is a user-driven one. But that's also great because then maybe your book club will want to read it more because they've heard about it. Valerie had a question of, is there a book award for books to add to Little Free Libraries or a book list for suggested books? Not necessarily, but you could use the Youth Media Awards for that. I would say every community has a different outlook on their Little Free Libraries. We've talked a lot about how, if you're donating a book, you should donate a book you'd be willing to take out of the Little Free Library. You should not put in your 1996, Guinness Book of World Records and be like, oh, but the poor kids need it, So what I love about these awards is that they're often really culturally diverse and they're newer. So it's a real treat to find a newer book that you might not have experienced, right? But at the same time, Snowy Day is always going to fly off the shelves, right? A classic like that has the Caldecott sticker on it is going to last, is going to be known. I do have, historically, since the DAR has been doing the book collection at the Holiday Open House, I do have a list of like great books to buy that I can share when I send out the information on this in the DOC as well. Some of them are America 250 related. Some of them are more general, just like books I know are really popular for kids. I will always say, especially if you're thinking about like what will make a kid stop at a Little Free Library and open the door, graphic novels, graphic novels, graphic novels. Put a Dog Man in there and then something really cool right next to it, and like you're sold. So even though you might think, oh, I want to give them something a little more deep, I want to give them something blank. Think about the Little Free Libraries as they have to actually stop and look inside of them. And they're not going to do that if they're seeing books that don't catch their eye or that they don't even recognize necessarily too. Any other questions or thoughts?
Arissa, it's Beverly. Yes. I'm just wondering, I saw something about having books in laundromats.
Yes.
So that taken off, and do you have any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, so we hosted Laundry Cares a couple months ago. They did a great presentation on that for us. It's on our website if people haven't seen it. They are working in a similar vein as Little Free Libraries, where they want to put not just any book in a library, but a book that kids are gonna want to read. So that's a great idea if you don't have land or you have a partnership with someone. It doesn't also have to be a public laundromat, right? If you're in a big city and every building has an apartment building, in a laundry room in the basement, maybe you talk to members who live in those kinds of buildings and they can start a Little Free Library shelf. I also saw someone today sharing about like a Little Free Library cart in an airport. It said books on the fly. I know I have a scheduled trip to the USO Lounge at Ronald Reagan coming up to drop off some books. There are definitely ways that aren't the traditional Little Free Library that are great places to put books, and all these kind of same sentiments apply. What kind of books are going to make people stop? What is being respectful of it? As a former librarian, public librarian, I had a lot of people who wanted to donate their books to us. And, we could sell them or we could give them to the poor. And they're giving us 30-year-old medical textbooks. And like, what does it say about you that you're like, poor people don't need up-to-date medical records? It's fine. They can have, the old stuff, right? And I think a similar way with kids, right? Kids deserve books that have characters that look like them in them, which sometimes means more recent. They deserve books that are not going to make them have to look up what a rotary phone is if they don't know, things like that. So these book awards, because they are coming out every year, are a great way to stay current without having to do all the reading yourself, which could kill you. Robin had a comment, our community food pickup place has a new bookshelf made by Girl Scouts. Families picking up food can get a book too. I love that. That's a great way to think about, like, if you have partnerships with soup kitchens, food banks, WIC centers, you know, diaper banks, those are all great places to put these books. Our chapter donates books to the USO at DFW Airport. We donate a little free library to them too. Awesome. I love to see that. The New Haven Airport, when I was in college, I remember had a shelf that was sort of like a take one, leave one. You know, maybe you'll be back, maybe you won't. Of course, they had like they had like one, you know, Hudson News and nothing else. So that was a very grateful thing to have. I will say, thinking about some of the adult book awards, the Carnegie Medals is great. It's offered through the American Library Association. They do a long list and a short list. So 45 titles on the long list of nonfiction and fiction great books that are vetted by librarians and booksellers. And then they have a short list of 3 and 3, and then one winner in each. This year, the winner of the Carnegie Medal for fiction, which I'm sure you all have heard of, is the book that also won the Pulitzer Prize, which is James by Percival Everett. It's a retelling of Huckleberry Finn through Jim's perspective. The nonfiction book award this year was for a book about the Grand Canyon, I think. You know, very classic. RUSA also has book awards. Let me pull those again up real quick. For lots of different categories, nonfiction, cookbooks, literature reviews, things like that. So I just put that chat in the, or that link in the chat. I will say an award that wasn't in my spreadsheet, but is also given out by ALA is the Alex Awards. Alex, like the name. It is specifically given to adult books that have appeal for teens. We all probably were those teens who are reading well above our grade level and interest rate. And so the Alex Awards is great if you have some upper teens in your life who you're looking for good adult books to give them that will still kind of meet the needs of a teenager. They don't want to read about what it's like to become a grandmother probably, but are a little bit higher on that scale of like interest. Any other questions or thoughts on local awards? I will say DC does an award does a best of list called Capital Choices. I'm putting their website in the chat. Every year they publish a list of like, here are 100 great books across these 4 or 5 age categories and a little bit about them. That's decided by book professionals, librarians, things like that, but it's not a competitive committee to get on. Yes, 21st Century Pack House. Yes, the DAR does do a book award every year. It's called the Excellence in American History Award. They give it to an adult book and a children's book. We also have a webinar on that on our website. This past year, they did a novel about Saratoga as the adult winner, and then a picture book about the different like parts of the American Revolution as a children's book. It's a picture book winner. They will announce hopefully at this year's annual Continental Congress. And if your chapter submitted a nomination like I did, you should be hearing from them soon, hopefully. Fingers crossed, because I made some good nominations this year. Fingers crossed. I'm going to pull the American Indian Youth Literature Award real quick. Someone asked in the chat. That is, like I said, an award that's only given out every 2 years. It's actually a little bit sad of why it's given out 2 years, which is historically there just simply weren't enough books by and about Indigenous characters to give it out every year. Now I think this will change. I think ultimately they will be able to soon give an award every year. But I love to pull books that have won this award for my American Indian Minute. You could even do like a whole American Indian themed story time. I have some email outreach to do about making sure that Chippewa's library can get copies of Chooch Helped and Wings of an Eagle so that these kids are seeing themselves in the books. Yes, searching by author type as well is really great. You can also, if you do a more general Google search, a lot of websites like Booklist, like Hoopla, things like that will put together kind of curated lists. If you're a Libby user, your library will often put together a list of like recommended titles around different cultural heritage months or activities. Like my library has one on Lunar New Year right now, which is full of books about, you know, different things like that. Some great American Indian awards from last year. If you have younger readers who are like fans of Junie B. Jones and those style books, the Jojo McCoon's books are very good. They're about a very rambunctious first grader. It's very Junie B. Jones, like set in a school, but very culturally rich. She's Ojibwe. They also had a couple She Persisted books, which are like chapter book biographies. There's one on Deb Haaland, who was Secretary of the Interior, Wilma Mankiller, and Maria Tallchief. Eagle Drums was a Newbery Honor book last year. It's an amazing upper middle grade early YA adventure story about a character kind of going on his, you know, great adventure to become a man. You know, he has to prove himself by doing these, you know, 3 tasks or whatever, but it's infused with his Native American culture. It's beautifully done. And Rock Your Mocks is a picture book about kind of the cultural awareness around moccasins. Loved that one. There was a graphic novel that came out this year called Ribbon Skirt, which is about the making of ribbon skirts, obviously, by actually a trans character. So it's a really interesting both look at like, what does gender mean in Native American communities, as well as like, how are our clothes related to who we are as people? So I highly recommend those. I think as someone who often does committee minutes for her committee chairs, you know, thinking about how can I tie literacy into everything I'm doing, especially since my Chapter Regions project is so focused on sharing stories, and finding books like this is a great way to do it. The Cybert Medal, which is the Informational Book Award, is great for conservation because you know, lots of books on climate change, lots of books on conservation and kind of saving water and things like that throughout the years. So Life After Whale would be a great pick for that. There was another whale fall book that came out this year. It might be called Whale Fall. So if you're interested in dead whales, there's like a whole potential there. There was a book that won the Cybert a couple of years ago called The Great Stink. And it's basically about how London had to realize they should stop putting the poop in the river and then trying to drink the river, you know? It's great for read alouds with kids who love gross stuff, which most children do. And also for your chapter members who are going to go into London maybe and wanting to know why it smells like that. Stephanie said, I purchase children's books when I travel that are regional and donate them to my local school, something they wouldn't normally get. That's a great idea. Thinking about how, especially if you go to local, like independent bookstores, they're going to stock a lot of local authors, maybe things specifically to their culture and region, and then sharing those with other children is a great way to say, hey, you're not the only person that deserves a story told about you. Look at what we can learn about the world by reading these other books. I really love the Sidney Taylor Book Award, especially as someone who didn't grow up knowing many people who were Jewish. It's really interesting to learn, you know, not just about the Holocaust and World War II, but about like, oh, Jewish naming cultures. How do we, you know, how do they name people? How do they decide what to wear? What's about hair covering? What are they making? What is Rosh Hashanah? All those sorts of things that you can only learn through cultural specificity. That's a big thing. As I've been reading Chooch helped with my kids this week, we've been talking a lot about cultural specificity in books and how important that is, right? If you wrote a book about your culture and your family, you would have them eating the foods that your family eats, right? So in Chooch Helped, which won the Caldecott this year, they're a Cherokee family. And some of the stuff that Chooch is helping with is commonplace, right? He's helping someone paint, but we see her painting a Cherokee mural with Cherokee motifs. He's pouring flour all over the floor while his uncle makes grape dumplings, which are a specific type of dumpling. It's more of a dessert dumpling. It looks really good. They're making moccasins together, right? It's showing cultural specificity. Yes, it's a universal story for siblings about how your baby brother is going to be baby brothering all the time, but specifically they are looking, you know, through those lens of cultural references. Same way if you read a book, Home in a Lunchbox, if she's immigrating from Hong Kong to America and thinking about what's in her lunchbox, it's going to be a specific kind of food, right? It's not the same impact if it's pizza when she opens her box, right? Or tacos. Marianne, I work with elementary school kids, so I work in pre-K 3 through 5th grade. And I, you know, a lot of people section it and be like, oh, I do picture books with my younger kids. I historically I've been reading Caldecott Winners and I'm reading Chooch Helped with every single grade level. My fifth graders engage with it in a different way than my preschoolers do it. But don't feel like you can't use a really good picture book with older grades, especially a picture book biography. So I'm really looking forward to sharing Wings of an Eagle with like my middle school students I work with as well in CAR, because I think picture book biographies are a really easy way to learn about a new character from history without having to do a whole research project, right? You're getting a full story, a full kind of deep dive, and you're getting pictures, and you're getting to see what they look like, and you're getting to see kind of ideas around them. Are there any other questions before we close out for the night? Thank you. Allison, do you want to close us out? Allison, you're muted.
That's what I get for coughing when I have it on. I want to thank you for sharing your expertise with us and what you did working on the contest this year, because you have done such a good job of explaining it to us. And I think many of us didn't really know much about it. So that's very, very helpful. I also think that your school is very fortunate to have someone as enthusiastic and as engaging as you are to lead its students to new adventures in learning. And thank you for sharing all the titles of these books with us. I'm sure you'll be a wonderful resource for everybody. Would you like to give them your email if they'd like to email you with another question?
Yes, I'm going to put my email in the chat, and I'm also very active on the DOC. I once met someone at Continental Congress and they said, "Oh, I recognize you from the doc." So feel free to communicate with me there. I'm in DC, but always on the Zooms. Thank you all so much for coming to this. This has really been like the biggest year of my career as a librarian. People dream their whole lives of being on the Caldecott committee. It has been an amazing adventure, and I'm really tired. I was telling someone, I feel like there's a whole cavern in my brain right now that's empty because I have done nothing but read and think about picture books. So if I owe you emails, sorry. I've been really busy. If I owe you picture books, you're getting them soon. Don't worry. But this has been a really adventure of a lifetime, and it's so fun to see and share kind of this adventure and how kind of the behind the scene works. I think all of us recognize, those medals on the stickers on the books in the library. And so it's really interesting to think about where they come from and that they're decided by normal people and not just, they're not given out willy-nilly, right? We fight for these. My committee did not fight for Chooch. Everyone immediately agreed it was Chooch once we started talking about it. But in theory, I've heard that people fight over their awards. Thank you all so much. We will be announcing soon our February meeting and date. It will be an author. So I know we get a lot of engagement with those. So I'm excited to have you all back next month. You have my email. I have your email, more importantly. And we will see you here next month.